All right, well, welcome to this episode of the Small Bike Stuff podcast. It's me, Callum, and Dana. I'm in New Zealand. Dana's in Thailand.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I wish I could be there right now. We're just starting to go into cooler weather here in New Zealand, so it's definitely one of those enviable moments when I see you sitting there, probably like on the verge of sweating with the air conditioning turned on at 28 degrees Celsius or something.
It's brutally hot right here now, though, bro. Like you know, you lived here, so these 2 months, it's
at the time of filming this, I've got two friends, a couple. Well, I'm friends with the guy, and him and his partner went over to Thailand. They're in Bangkok right now. They're leaving tomorrow, and I said to him, "Go and see the city in the morning and the afternoons," and they ignored me. And then replied yesterday saying, "Yeah, we should have listened to you. We were outside at midday and almost died of heat exhaustion."
Yeah.
Which is probably kind of an apt segue, really, because you almost died of heat exhaustion. Well, you probably didn't, but anytime you ride motorcycles long distance in Thailand, there is that risk. It's a big mix of, do I cover up, or do I kind of not cover up and stay cool? But if I come off, I am going to be a cheese grater. Just rolling down the road. It's a hard mix. And on my long distance trips in Thailand, we wore really protected bottom halves. And on the top, we ended up with just like long sleeve cotton shirts. And the reason we're talking about this is because Dana did an incredible trip, which is an incredible YouTube video, the length of Sukhumvit. So Sukhumvit is a road in Thailand, which we'll talk about soon. But what do you wear when you're riding long distance?
It depends. I've gone through a few iterations, excuse me, over the years. For long distance, generally, obviously long pants. I'm not wearing shorts or like capris or anything. No flip flops for me. Thongs for your New Zealand audience.
Crocs, Crocs. That covered.
no Crocs. Yeah. Okay. So. I always try to wear boots. And at least like heavy denim that's been reinforced in like the skid zones, if you will. I find it a bit uncomfortable to wear like a full kitted out motorcycle pants with like knee pads and like everything stitched in. So like I don't mind to have like the ones that are loose like underneath, like or like just slightly like slipped in on the knees or hips. But now, like last couple of rides, I made a pair of overalls to ride with, and they're reinforced, they're double layered, and they have the impact pads on the knees, but not on the hips because of the buttons, which I find really comfortable to ride with the bibs and everything, and then I can throw a jacket or a vest over that.
Motorcycle taxi vest.
No, I don't have that level of protection yet with my amulets. I'm working on it.
You'd be invincible.
Immortality. I'd probably, in any other country than Thailand, I would totally rock that. If I wore that here, I'd be beat. There'd be 300 winds like chasing me down Sukhumvit and just beating me like as they pull up next to me.
That's just
you know how it is.
Yeah. It's a very territorial thing. It's a very territorial thing.
But yeah, I've got a warm weather motorcycle jacket, fully kitted. It's probably because it's all mesh. It's probably good for one crash, like if you're to fall with it, with all upgraded armor in it, and always obviously a full face, or I wear a modular helmet because you need that occasional breath of fresh air here. And being able to flip the whole front up is very nice sometimes, like when you're stopped and you can.
It really is. It's one thing that I was going to mention about the modular helmets just while we're on this subject, because I've just finally got a modular helmet, which is just an HAC RHPA 90. But what I struggled to find a GoPro mount. I'm a big fan of having GoPro mounts on the front of your helmet. Yep. I'm not going to get into the argument about whether you should or shouldn't have GoPro mounts on your helmet. That's a whole entire different kettle of fish. But this there's a lot of people out there that have the designs and they 3D print them and retail them, and I finally just got one on here, and I'm excited because I've got audio running to a microphone in the helmet, but I can only run it when it's closed.
Yeah.
And then I quickly plug the camera in and we're good to go.
You shouldn't ride with a modular helmet flipped up.
No.
Because there's structural elements to the helmet that you're lacking if you. Yeah. I see people do that. ride with it. They have a modular, which is a great thing to have. It gives you that full face protection. But when you flip it up, like there's usually an anchor point on the near the jawline on those helmets that makes it a safe helmet when closed. I question the structural soundness of a helmet when it's flipped up like that.
It would be like having a rollover in a drop top car.
Yeah,
it's just kind of not really going to do much. I mean,
no.
Like as I like to say, there's no front, and if you crash in a half face helmet, you'll have half your face left. So
yeah,
make of that what you will. Full disclaimer: in my channel, I do sometimes have my helmet up because I'm just talking to the camera.
Yeah, like I said, when if I'm stopped, I'll totally flip it up, and also because I wear glasses, I have corrective lenses. It makes it much easier to put the helmet on and off.
Yeah, absolutely. So speaking of riding in general, one place that you frequent on your motorbike, whether you want to or not, just because of the location that you live within Bangkok, is Sukhumvit Road. And Sukhumvit Road is a lot of things to a lot of people. You could say it's the lifeblood to like the central and then eastern part of Thailand. It connects through to the Cambodian border, which is mind-blowing to believe if you know the name and you've just experienced it as a succession of 12 BTS train stops or however many there are on the road. But
a lot. I mean, now. More than when you lived there. A lot.
Massive. Yeah, there's a massive amount. And the big thing about Sukhumvit Road is that, I mean, if you've lived there for a long time, you will have experienced the train the whole time. I remember when I was looking at apartment buildings one time when I was in Thailand, and this travel agent took me around, who funnily enough was from New Zealand, travel agent, house agent. And he said, I moved here 2 years before they put the SkyTrain in. And I just can't imagine living in Bangkok with no SkyTrain at all. I think it would have been a really difficult place to navigate. But what do you use it for? What is this road to you? Is it anything special, or is it a place you avoid?
It is. I mean, it is something special. I live on Sukhumvit. I live in the Bongjak area, Bongjak BTS on the Sukhumvit line. The interesting thing is that we call it the Sukhumvit line, but it goes well beyond Sukhumvit, and I never realized until during the pandemic. I'm looking at the map, and I realized that Sukhumvit stops at those train tracks between Planchet and Nana. And I was like, that's interesting. I always thought it went all the way up to Chatuchat, and then it turned into Whipavadi when it went through that weird Lot Prow kind of intersection thing. And that got me interested. I'm like, okay, well, if it doesn't go all the way to that north part of the city, where does it go on the other end? Because I knew, like, I live in Bongjak. I'm like one station past Honda, but pretty far from Nana. So, okay, how far down does it go? Is it still Sukhumvit at Punyawati, at Udom Sok, at Sinakarin, at Geha? And yeah, it is. And I'm on Google Maps, just scrolling, and realizing, this number 3, because Sukhumvit is Route 3. It's the third major road built in Thailand during their sort of industrial boom. And as I'm scrolling down, I'm like, this goes all the way down the eastern seaboard. And the topography starts to look really interesting once you get past. There's a little town on the eastern seaboard of the Gulf called Pattaya. You may have heard of it.
A tiny little village.
Yeah, a tiny little village. People like to go there. I think, the scenery or something. Like, it attracts a certain group.
The beach.
Yeah. The one time I ever went in the water there is when I first moved to Thailand 10 years ago, and I got a skin infection.
I was going to say staph and something. Like, don't do that. It's gross.
I've got other stories about Pattaya that for a different podcast for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
But as you get south of there, right, there's a few more major cities. There's Rayong and stuff like that. But the topography starts to look really interesting. And the network of roads that come off of Sukhumvit start to look more, they get less dense. They get less dense. And you start to see these sporadic sort of villages pop up right on Sukhumvit. And it starts to remind me of like sort of like the American West, or like driving Route 66, where you get these sort of highway towns that sort of spring up along this thoroughfare. And I realized it goes all the way down this incredibly narrow part of Thailand to the Cambodian border. And this route just sparks my interest. Like I'm obsessed with it, because to me, Sukhumvit is essentially 80% of my life in Bangkok. And I think it's that way for a lot of people. Maybe it's even more for some people, because most people who move here, or even Thais who come to Thailand, like everything, jobs, homes, condos, are all along Sukhumvit. Yeah, even down in Samut Sakhon, which is the town right below Bangkok, south of Bangkok. So the idea that this extends outside of Bangkok so far, and is this lifeblood for these villages and these towns south of, Pattaya or Rayong. And Rayong is a big petrochemical city. For a lot of people that don't know, Thailand has oil in the Gulf, and a lot of the refineries are in Rayong. So you get south of there, and it's really kind of like, wow. And I've never been that far. And so
it's really something that if you let's quantify it this way: the length of the road is 488 kilometers long.
Yes,
I believe. So it's 300 miles long. So the pieces that you're talking about there, for someone that doesn't know the road, the start where he's talking about Sukhumvit in the city and places called like Nana, Bang Jak, even where you live. If you go from the very first BTS station on Sukhumvit Road to the last BTS station on Sukhumvit Road, which, bear in mind, is a very small portion of the road's total length, that's still, it's got to be getting towards like an hour of sitting time on the train.
From Nana to Kehaya, you're probably over 40 minutes.
Yeah. And that's a train that's going a decent speed. The doors are stopping and opening at every station for maybe 10, 15 seconds, depending on how many people there are. So that in itself is a really long way. And to me, Sukhumvit was the life. I lived outside of Bangkok in Samut Prakan, outside of what had any decent public transport. So my whole life was every single weekend, every single opportunity, coming to the nearest BTS station on Sukhumvit and traveling somewhere up within that line, getting off and just living my life. It really is a great part of Bangkok. And even these days, when I go back to Bangkok, I generally base myself on or near it, and most of my action within the city is happening there. So, yeah.
I mean, if you think about, like public transport in Bangkok, this is a whole other thing, but it's our last mile, like we talked about motorcycle wins earlier, like our last mile delivery of humans from the train to your destination is pretty awesome. Songtal, motorcycle win, like you can, like if you get off at a station anywhere along there, like 2, 3, 4 kilometers down one of the soys off of Sukhumvit, you can get there no problem.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just long. It's really, really long. And I hope that us talking about how long it is for the last 10 minutes has quantified how long it is, because it really is. The history of the road itself, I'm really not familiar with, apart from the fact that there wasn't a BTS SkyTrain station, SkyTrain at all. And then in the late 90s, that started to exist, and that changed the city entirely. Do you know anything kind of prior to that? You live in like an old townhouse that's got to be probably built back, in the 60s, 70s, something like that.
Very, very pre-BTS. So obviously, so my wife is Thai, Jib, who you know, and so she's a Bangkokian. She grew up here, so her perspective on the city it's interesting to see how, for me, her perspective on Sukhumvit changes my perspective in a way, because she has like this very historical perspective about it. And when we moved, we used to live in Asok, and we moved to Bang Jak for mostly I wanted more space, and we didn't like Asok is very busy. It's sort of the center. I would consider Asok like the center of Sukhumvit. Like this is like downtown. So if Sukhumvit was a city, Asok's downtown. Right? There's Terminal 21. There's these great food courts. There's all this nightlife. There's a cowboy ranch down there. There's all this stuff in Asok, but you can get to a lot of other things from there as well. Yes. And then on either side, you have Nana and you have Prakanong, not Prakanong, Prampong on either side. And then even like Petrobury on the MRT, because the MRT intersects with our subway intersects with the SkyTrain at Ossoak. So the Queen Surrogates in the other direction. So there's a lot of stuff down there. And when we decided, originally we were going to move to Prakanong, and that building fell through. And I was like, well, let's look at Bongjak, because I didn't really want to live in Unnut. It's very like built up, and a lot of foreigners choose to live there. And like, I just, that creates like different environment that I kind of want to avoid. I have a lot of foreigner friends here. I'm not trying to say it's bad, but high concentrations in one area. Jib's just telling me I have a delivery coming.
That's sweet, man. You took
another motorcycle part arriving for the Yamaha.
Last mile delivery.
One of the things that was really interesting was Jib talked about. Jib was talking to me about moving past Unnut is seen as living very far out of the city. So even though it's just one station, there's like a bridge that crosses the Klong.
Yeah.
In Unnut. And that is like, oh, that's like the border. Right. Okay. And like in her mind, like growing up, she's like, oh, if you're going past Unnut growing up, like you're going really far. Yeah. And she even told me back when she was a kid, like Tonglaw was sort of considered like this out of town kind of destination place. Like people had their country homes in Tonglaw.
Yeah,
which is like
essentially heart of the city now.
Yeah, now today Tonglaw is like one of the hottest nightlife spots, and you just get off the train and boom, you're in the middle of everything. And Ekamai, which is one station further, is very similar. So it's her perspective is, especially because she grew up on the other side of the river in Pinglao. So to think that there's this like idea of distance just within the city is interesting, let alone 488 kilometers down the seaboard.
Yeah, absolutely. You obviously kind of became fascinated about the length of that road, and it might just sound like we're long route enthusiasts here, but there is a reason for us talking about we kind of are. But the reason we're talking about it is because because you did a trip on motorcycles with another YouTuber, Chris. And he runs, what is it?
Retired Working for You or something. Like a very small channel. Like pay no attention to it.
Yeah. He doesn't need any more views.
He's one of my best friends. Like he has an amazing channel. He's a great advocate for Thailand. Definitely check it out if you have time.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, but if you don't have time, don't leave this video, because we're going to discuss one of the trips that you guys did in depth, and you guys did the whole length of the road, and that obviously means that you need to come back again. So we're talking about nearly 1,000 kilometers. Yeah. You probably did clock up 1,000 kilometers by the time you did a few little side roads here and there.
Yeah.
What kind of happened once you realized the length of it and you wanted to plan it? What's the chronological order here? Did you just mention him, hey, let's go, and he was keen like that day, or is there actual planning that went into it?
Yeah, so I actually, before I ever mentioned it to Chris, I was like, let me explore this road kind of digitally, right? So I looked, I'm like, all right, Sukhumvit Soy 1 is Nana Planchit sort of intersection. And there's the only really sketchy part I found, kind of like walking it out sort of on Google Street View, is near where you used to live, near the airport. There's this section where Sukhumvit Route 3 sort of turns. It kind of makes a right hand down the coast, and like 5 roads merge into each other, and they come to this bottleneck. And we've got these utes in Thailand, these pickup trucks that they stack stuff like super high, and they're notorious for flipping or dumping their load like on the road. And that particular intersection looked a little sketchy on Google Earth, but yeah, I planned it out. I sort of mapped. I like to ride a very aggressive schedule. Like for me, like sunrise, like an hour before sunrise, I'm doing my pre-ride check. I'm on the bike. I'm on the road. The sun's coming up, and I'm going until I need fuel. I stop. I get fuel. I drink coffee. I eat like a little bit of food, and I'm back on the bike. And I literally like go to 7-Eleven, get something out of the freezer, eat that, drink a coffee, back on the bike, and go. And like I'm just constantly drinking water every time I stop. And you know, obviously we talked about the heat. I drink a lot of electrolyte packs and hydration salts when I'm riding here, because like you have no idea how much you're sweating because of the wind and like the heat. It's hard to keep track of. And oftentimes like you realize you're not peeing on your trips. Like it's so hot, you're just not drinking enough fluid. But yeah, that's how I like to ride. Is I get on a route and I'm very aggressive about like getting my time in, and like for safety reasons in Thailand, I hardly ever ride after dark. So about an hour before sunset, we'll find the closest hotel. I will find the closest hotel and stop, and that's it for the day for me. Just because, you know, a very high rate of accidents here in Thailand. The majority happen at night. The majority involve alcohol. So the safer I can be, the better. But so I planned it all out, and I sort of figured it. I know Chris won't ride to my, like the way I ride when I ride solo. Chris won't put in those hours quite as much. So I sort of scaled it back a bit, and I pitched it to him. I was like, yo, I want to do this ride. I think it'll be awesome. I want to make a short video about it. And this is sort of where my video style also started to shift to more documentary type filmmaking. And Chris makes like these amazing kinetic sort of like vlogs. And so like you do your style, I'll do mine, and we'll put it out there. He's like, hell yeah, let's go. And he was down. Awesome. He doesn't even own a bike. He rented an Aerox, a Yamaha Aerox, So I did this trip on my unmodified Honda MSX, or slightly, not really, no real modifications to it other than like some cosmetic stuff.
A true wild hog.
Yeah, and 12-inch wheels, and like, you know, it was what it was, and I was like, yeah, let's do it. And we planned it. We picked a date. We picked the start time and had at it. And it was, you know, he was down. He was like, all right, these are the days. Let's go. He literally rented the bike. It didn't have a top box, so he could only use the under the seat storage.
Yeah.
And for Chris, like he doesn't like. I had made a linen shirt to hope to get a little bit of a breathability, and I had wore some elbow pads underneath. That didn't help at all with heat. Like you avoid the sunburn, but like, you know, obviously linen would just shred the second it hit like anything.
I always get the strip of sunburn where your kind of the helmet stops, and there's this, and even if I've got sun cream or sun protection, it doesn't matter what. Every time on a long motorcycle trip, I take my helmet off, and it's like I'm still wearing a hat. This is all white. And this is really, well, pink, as you can see. And then this is really bright, deep red. And I've just got like these dark red eyebrows.
I keep the sunscreen down.
Yeah, it's a wise idea.
I also, one of the other things I always do is I have these oversized handkerchiefs, and I always tie one around my neck. And just to keep my neck from getting sunburned, because that will burn. And always, the other thing I've learned the hard way is always buy gloves that have no openings on the top.
Oh, absolutely.
So like where the Velcro, like that little hole where the Velcro like loops over, and you get like a little sliver of skin showing, that will burn.
It will definitely burn.
That will hurt so bad after like a day.
Yeah, I think in New Zealand we're conditioned to an entirely different burn level. I've mentioned it on your comments of your stream once before, how we've got no ozone layer here. It's kind of slowly repairing itself these days, but back in the day it just kind of decided to not be there anymore. And that means that when you go outside in the middle of summer here, you're looking at like 7 to 12 minutes burn time. Wow. And then you've got like second degree burns, third degree burns. Yeah, it's crazy. You've got to be really careful. And for me, I was mind blown because I went over to Thailand, and when I was first riding bikes there, I was very inexperienced, just riding kind of like in a t-shirt and long pants. And I could go out for like 4 to 5 hours without getting a sunburn. You'd be hot and you'd be dry and you'd be dehydrated. But I wouldn't get that deep sunburn. And that was mainly because of the cloud and pollution layer that I was riding underneath. But it's a really interesting experience riding over there, and it's just different. It's like if you want to know what it's like and you can't be in a hot country right now and ride a motorcycle, get a hairdryer, turn it on, and sit in front of it for like 45 minutes at a time.
Get 10 of them.
Yes. That's exactly what it's like.
Yeah.
Yeah. When you were riding, you guys started at Soi 1.
Yes.
And then you went all the way to the very end of Sukhumvit Road.
Yep.
What was it like logistics-wise, kind of like starting at Soi 1? Is it easy to find somewhere to stop and just pull over and make a quick video? Or did you take a long time to get out of the city? Like, what was it like?
So Soi 1's easy, right? You pull up early morning. It was like 6 a.m. Sun's just up, already traffic on the road. But the beginning of Soi 1 was clear. So we literally just pulled up, turned around, parked the bikes on the corner right behind a fruit cart because they were sort of like blocking traffic. So we're like, all right, we'll pull up right here. Bought some fruit, ate it, get some early morning energy. Fresh papaya, best thing for awesome. 20 baht chopped up with a little, so good.
That's the way.
Yeah. This is the way.
This is the way.
All the Star Wars fans will get that reference. So yeah, that was the start of it. So really easy. I mean, had we waited 2 hours and gone a little later, that would have never happened because that would have just been an absolute shit show of an experience, like trying to get the bikes turned around and parked on the corner. So I won. We spent 20 minutes filming on the corner, just goofing around and shooting B-roll and packed up everything back in the bikes and off we went. And getting out of the city, so from Nana to Soi 1 to south of Keha was pretty rough traffic-wise. Like, it was just packed, like, with traffic the whole way. And that was a bit difficult. So it's like stopping Nana to Baring or Bangna. Nana to Bangna is like nonstop, stop and go, stop and go, stop and go. You get south of Bangna, it opens up a little bit, but it's still heavy traffic. Once you're like south of Keha and you're just sort of like going, it starts to open up, and then by the time you're like deep in Summit Prakan, it's pretty much open road. And I don't think we saw another traffic light until that sketchy right hand turn, and that probably took 30-40 minutes to sort of like to sort of navigate through that, like just like from the amount of traffic that was there. And I think we had to wait like 3 cycles at the light just to be able to turn. And they're like 190-second lights.
Yeah, they're really long. I hate the length of red lights in Thailand, but also as an added bonus, like 50-60% of the traffic lights in the country have the countdown timer, which we don't have in New Zealand. And so you can sit there and basically chuck the revs to 9,000 at 2 seconds, and everyone leaves at 1. So
I do not because I wait until it's counted down a few seconds, because there's always a straggler coming through the intersection. I've seen it a few times.
Every time. So was there any points where you like accidentally rode off Sukhumvit, or was it very easy to just follow the whole way? There's that like a distinct right-hander. Was it after Pattaya or before Pattaya where you have to kind of continue on where the road veers off entirely? But what was it like?
There were a few points. So like we did turn off Sukhumvit a few times intentionally. One in Pattaya to get lunch. We arrived in Pattaya like right around lunchtime, like for a late lunch, and we thought like, hey, let's stop here and grab a bite. And Chris wanted to visit a friend of his who owns a bar down there. So we did that, and I had lunch. I think I took like a work call while I was down there. And then we jump back on the bikes, and once you're back on 3, like once you're south of Bangkok or south of Samut Prakan, it's just straight road up until there's one little section where there's like a hard right and a hard left, and like that gets you into that narrow strip of Thailand down the last like 100+ kilometers. But other than that, there was a few traffic detours because there was a lot of construction on Sukhumvit along the way. And there's a lot of section of road that was just gorgeous, like that they had just redone. And you've got like rice farms on one side or jungle on one side and ocean on the other. And you're on this like perfectly new asphalt road that's just like silky smooth, and there's not a lot of traffic, and there's little food stands on the side of the road you can pull up to, and it's fantastic.
At what point are you? So if you're going down, you're following the Gulf of Thailand basically all the way around.
Yeah.
The Gulf of Thailand where it meets the water meets the land is different in different places. Some places it's kind of mud flats, as we like to call them in New Zealand, with mangroves growing out of it, and then eventually you've got like Pattaya and like Bang San Beach kind of area that are all beaches, beautiful beaches. Well, they would be beautiful if they weren't so used and dirty.
Yeah.
But you've got mud flats to beaches. Like, are you looking out as you're riding at the start there and seeing all that, or are you not able to see it because you're so built up? Like, at what point can you freely see the ocean for the first time?
There's sections of both. There's a section on 3 just north of Pattaya where you get some nice glimpses. Most of those glimpses you're seeing cargo ships coming through the Gulf, either up into the Chao Phraya or coming out of the Chao Phraya. So there's a few sections there where you get it. And then once you get south of Pattaya, there's a few sections, and 3 moves a little bit more inland. So like you're really just kind of getting glimpses. It's after that right-hand turn, which we took on day 2, that we got to that point on day 2, that right-hand turn, and then you kind of pan left. And for the majority of that, you've got mountain and jungle on the left and Gulf of Thailand on the right. And it's sort of like mountains kind of like hide and then reveal the Gulf on your right. And you get some absolutely stunning views as you navigate this. And that is like a wide open section of road. There's almost no traffic. There's almost, it especially at the time, right? This was peak pandemic. So like, we were like, I want to say we did this in 2021 or 2020. And I think it was 2021. It was in April even, like, so almost 2 years ago.
Okay.
And we were, just open road and like nothing really on it. And it's just this great, at one point, there's a section in Chris's video about this where I'm filming him. I'm standing in the middle of the road on Sukhumvit. This is like middle of day 2. And he's got his wireless mic laved up, and he's walking down the middle of the road saying, this is the same Sukhumvit as in Bangkok. And there's no cars in sight. And it's mountains on one side, like jungle and ocean on the other. And it's just beautiful. And it's this like sort of once in a lifetime experience. Like, cause it's not a trip I would rush to do again. Especially now that traffic's going to be back. And I got the feeling like that narrowest part of Thailand is sort of there's this part on the trip called the narrowest point in Thailand that I feel like that's sort of a tourist destination because of the way it's sort of built up. So like, and I'm sure there's a lot more commerce coming through the border as well. So like, it's not something I would rush to do again, but at the moment that we did it, it was just this perfect experience.
That's incredible. Days taken to do it. The first day you rode, you had late lunch in Pattaya. I imagine you blew a couple of hours there. Then did you stay somewhere before the actual last part, or did you go right to the end on the very first day? Like, what was it? What was the logistics?
So we got back on the road after Pattaya, and I think we had like 4 more hours of daylight. And we got down to Klang, which is a small town. And we basically, sun was going down. We pulled over to get gas, opened up Google Maps, like, okay, where are we staying? Closest hotel is here. Got okay ratings. And it was cheap. I think it was like 600 baht. We pull in, and we had originally we were going to get like these little like villa houses they have out back, and they're like, oh, those are full. They've got like 15 of them. They're like, they're full. Like, you can't get that. We have rooms in the hotel though. Stay, whatever. It's cheap, 600 baht, and the rooms were massive. We each got a room. It was huge. It was like bigger than some condos I've seen in Bangkok. And it was just a bed, a couch, and a table in this massive room with floor-to-ceiling windows for essentially $20 US, not even, like 18, 17. And so all like beautiful like view, light coming in. But the bed was rock hard. Like,
of course, it goes without saying.
Like, I don't even like. It felt like there was like no cushioning on there, but it's like you could touch it and feel like a little bit of cushion. But why is it like a rock? I don't understand. And Chris had the same thing, and we were joking about it because we showered and we went to grab some food. And we were starving, and grabbed a couple of late night beverages as well. There was like some weird beer prohibition at the time in that province. So we couldn't buy beer at 7-Eleven or like Little C. And there was a laundry shop. We saw a couple guys who worked at like a factory nearby at this laundry shop drinking beers. And Chris sort of caught it out of the corner of his eye. He saw the Leo can. I was like, whoa, wait a minute.
What's happening here?
And so we walked over, and the lady's just got a little refrigerator full of beer and like laundry machines. And she's like, yeah, go ahead. And we ended up buying a couple of beers. We bought a couple of beers for the guys that we were talking to. And then it starts to rain like crazy, just like this freak summer storm. And it lasts like 30 minutes, and then it stops. And like we had cleared out a handful of beers in that time. And we get up and just walk down the street to this restaurant, which was like, you know, this style of place in Thailand where it's just like a bunch of tables on a big piece of property, and they've sort of got a central kitchen, and everyone's got their own like little bungalow, and it's all open air. And that's where we ate. Food was good, you know, especially for considering like we had been riding all day. It was, you know, great. And you know, that was day one, and like we both went back and laid on these hard ass beds, man. Like I don't even know how you get a bed this hard. Like it makes no sense to me. I'm a huge
I've always
guy.
considered Southeast Asia to be a geological oddity with bed hardness. Like if you stay anywhere that's not like a 4 or 5 star accommodation or a really nice Airbnb, you're getting some cement with a bit of foam on top, whether you like it or not.
That's what it felt like. Like, I'm a huge dude. I should not be able to lay on a mattress and it not move. Like, if anyone's going to sink in, I should sink in. I'm 120 kilos. Like, I should just, like, soak into this bed. And I'm, like, floating on top, and my body's all like, oh.
Yeah, it really makes you feel your imperfections when you're laying on a bed like that. What was the next morning like? So you wake up early. I'm the same with the whole getting up and getting on the road.
Yeah.
On the long trips I've done, we kind of always do one late morning. And every time we do a late morning, I'm just feeling like anxious. I've got a bit of anxiety going on. Like, we should be on the road. Yeah. We could be here by now. I want to go. So you guys jump on the road. How far did you have to ride to the end?
We're essentially halfway, so it's like 250 to go.
Yeah.
And I think because, you know, we filmed for quite a while at Nana, and then that long lunch, because I did take a meeting. I had a call with the CEO of a company, and so I spent like probably an hour plus on that. And so next morning we get up, it's still dark out. We were both like joking about how hard the bed was, and like neither of us really slept well. So first stop, PTT gas station, got to get a Amazon coffee. The problem is because Amazon coffee is 55 baht. And if you're just going to pay for like Americano that's over extracted, I'm not paying 200 baht from Starbucks. So Amazon, and PTT always has an Amazon. The problem was we got to there before 7 a.m. and they weren't open.
Said to wait.
No, so we went to 7-Eleven and got their coffee for 30 baht.
Okay.
Which is just as good. And got some water and ate a bit of food, and then got back, literally ate outside 7-Eleven like we always do, and got back on the road. And I would say the only thing that was a little nerve-wracking about the first morning, it was a very, very cold morning, and I was a little nervous about the wheels not warming up very quick, because I hadn't really expected to be that cool in the morning. And to the point where like I felt a little like chilly when I went outside. You know, so I'm like, oh, let's take it easy until we get to the PTT, so that, you know, the wheels can warm up and we get some grip. Because they did feel a bit. We filmed a bit on the way out of there, and they felt kind of like a little slick,
skatey almost.
Yeah, a little skatey. Yeah, and plus, you know, it had rained the night before, so like the ground was a bit saturated, and No, but once we're on the road, I remember we got to that hard right turn, which you can't miss because it's like literally Sukhumvit is at a T junction, and you've got to make this right. And we stopped and filmed there for a bit, and that was midday. And so like once we're there, we know like, hey, it's this right, and then it's gonna sort of like ease left, and then we're dead to nuts until we get to the border. And so like 250 to go, and we just made great time because zero traffic. I think we stopped like at that midway point too. We stopped for lunch at one of these little towns on Sukhumvit, and just kind of like popped into a noodle cart and got some food, and then boom, back on the bikes and off we went. And that part of the road, it feels the longest, but it feels the fastest, if that makes sense, because you're surrounded by beauty everywhere you go. And like, you're just getting these sort of glimpses of these fishing towns on the coast. And like, they're just behind this jungle, and you can see these little dirt roads go down the cliffs into these fishing villages, and they're off in the distance, and the mountains in Cambodia essentially to your left. So we were riding that. It's just like, I'll tell you, there was some on the Grom, unmodified Grom with the 12-inch wheels. I appreciated the smoothness of those roads, but I struggled on some of those large hills, small mountain / large hills. I was definitely, down in first gear with the throttle pinned and like crawling up it at a slow pace.
Wishing you had an extra gear between first, second, and then an extra gear between second and third.
For sure.
It's running a 4-speed air-cooled engine, long distance. Yeah, when you're a full-size gentleman I get it. I totally get it. And the bikes just take it. They're just like, whatever, that's fine.
It's a Honda. But, I mean, it's gonna do what you ask it to do at its own pace.
Yes, absolutely. Don't rush it. Stop being in such a rush.
Well, that's the nice thing about a small bike trip like this too, is you can't rush it, right? No. Despite the fact Chris had an Aerox, which is a fantastic bike, but much faster than my bike. But I mean, we were constantly passed by groups of guys on ADV bikes, just out there, blowing by us, doing like 140 the whole way.
Yeah.
And the nice thing about this trip, the struggles of the small bike on the trip are sort of what make it fun for me. Like I complain about the 12-inch wheels for a lot of reasons. I swapped them. I put 14s on. But I didn't have my updated suspension then either. So I really, that trip, like I was like, I need to do something with the suspension on this bike. It can't handle this again. But pushing it like at one point, like, I never had to get off and run it up a hill, but there were some points where I'm like, if I slow anymore, I'm going to fall over. But again, like,
no slower point.
125cc Honda engine and with 12 inches, and I'm creeping up these hills, and it worked. And a lot of times you get into because they're ups and downs, you get into this flow of like downhill, fourth gear, pinned, full tuck, try to get as much speed as you can. And that bike at like 99, 102, a little speed wobble to it. And then you get to the bottom, and that gives you enough to get like halfway up, and then downshift to third. All right, here I go. And like maybe you're in second by the time you're at the top. And like, you're all right, I didn't have to go to first. Good. And then quickly get back up to fourth. And you follow that pattern for a lot of this section, but it was fantastic. And Chris is in an automatic, and it's a 155, and he's like half my size. So he's just like, phew, phew.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. When you eventually do arrive at the end point, like, was it like a great personal accomplishment, or was it like, oh, we're here, okay, let's go again? Like,
about 50 kilometers before we get there, though, we're at that narrowest point.
Okay.
That is, like I said, it's probably a little bit of touristy, like the way it was built up for parking, but it's got this cool horseshoe that you can sort of drive up, and you're looking out at the Gulf, right? And it feels so much narrower than 450 meters when you're there.
Yeah.
And you look out, and it's like, oh, wow, this is gorgeous. And at one point, we're there filming up top, and these three guys ride up on Honda Waves, right up the side, and they pull into like right on the edge, and they duck their bikes into some bushes and throw like a little like a hide over it. And they've got backpacks on. They just run into the mountain jungle behind us. That literally, like, the border behind you, like 50 meters, is Cambodia. So
just some Cambodian dudes wanting to go to the market. That was all.
I'm sure they were just going camping. Like, that's all. They were going camping in the mountainous jungle on the narrowest part of the border with no security around. So I'm sure that was the case. But you see interesting things like that. But, you know, like, once you leave there, you're 30 minutes, 40 minutes from the end. And it's kind of weird because right between there and the end, there's this stretch of sort of nothingness. And it's hard to explain. It's brand new road because of all the construction that had been done. You've just got like the really calm Gulf off to your right. And you've just got these sort of like mountains that have jungle at the top on your left. And it's a flat road and like nothing around. And then as you're coming up to it, there's a little bit of build up, like right before the end. And then you turn this corner, and it's just a backlog of trucks that all have these import and customs like forms taped up on the back door. And I weave through those trucks, and you come up, you get to the border, and it's weird. And one of the things I'll point out, there's a 7-Eleven at the border.
Of course.
So, of course, right? Yeah, only one, though. Only one.
It's a bit disappointing. There should at least be one exactly the same directly across the road.
Yeah, across the road, perfectly. But, you know, it's like you pull up, and they've got the border checkpoint, and there's military and border patrol on both sides. And they're just there doing customs checks. You know, they're doing their thing. And we literally just park the bikes in front of that and start filming. And they're cool. They don't care. But it is this sense of like, wow, we did something that, you know, how many people actually take the time to go from point A on a road to point B?
Yeah.
Just to see what's on the other end. Because, I couldn't find anything online of anyone having done this whole road. I found a lot of videos in Thai about the narrowest point of the city. Of the country. I found a lot of videos in Thai about like some of the small villages. A few foreigners had gone like Rayong, a little bit further south, Klang. A few guys had made videos in Klang, and you know, to take it all the way to the end, it was like we had sort of set this goal, and when we got there, it was like, wow, like, you know, here we are, right? Yeah. It's like 1 in the afternoon. Yeah, it's like 1 in the afternoon. Yeah. Like we're here at, you know, where we want to be, and it's awesome. And it's like there was nothing there, trucks coming in and out, and a 7-Eleven, and like a lady selling fried bananas. And
the truck drivers would have been looking at you guys like, why do these guys look so excited to be standing there? Like, it's just that they've been there for the 10th time that week. Just like, I'm really confused. What are these guys doing?
Yeah, and it was awesome. And like, it's funny because we ran into a lot of other guys riding bikes along the way, and, you know, on various different trips. And they're always like, what are you doing with these little bikes? Like, this is not like you stay in Bangkok with that bike. You don't ride like the entire Sukhumvit. Like, no one does that. Like, well, we did it.
You did it. And I mean, at that point, that's the bit that you have to do that kind of no one thinks about. It's like when you think about people climbing Mount Everest. Like, you don't really consider the fact that once they get to the top, they've just got to turn around and go back again.
Yeah.
But that is the case.
It is the case. 100%.
So was it just a case of, cool, seen it all, wide open throttle, let's get as far as we can, as quick as we can?
Pretty much. We didn't. It's funny because we didn't even think about the return. Right away, right? It's like you get there and like we're probably at the border an hour, not even an hour, 40 minutes. And you're like, oh, well, we should head back and try to make some ground. And then maybe if we make up some good ground today, maybe we make it home tomorrow. Right. And then we're 3 days total. And that would be a great trip. Yeah. And so packed up the camera gear, you know, hugged it out a bit because, you know, it's when you finish a trip like that, like even like for us, that was an epic trip. Right. Yeah. And like I said, the challenges for me of the MSX 12-inch wheels, unmodified stock suspension, like, I had a good go of it, but
that's awesome.
we jump back on it, and full throttle, and full throttle on that bike's 90, 100, and off we went, and we got 3.5 good hours of riding in.
Cool.
And a storm hit.
Okay.
And hard, like a summer storm just like pelted us. And we see a tire shop on the side of the road. And like these rural businesses, a lot of times they'll just be like a metal farm type of building. Yeah. But we see a coffee shop in front, like a little coffee stand that's covered. And so we pull in just drenched, jump off the bikes and sit down at the coffee shop and order a couple Americanos and finish those up. And we're talking to the guy who owns the tire shop, and he's like, oh yeah, he's like, we have this one. He's telling us like all the ones that his family owns, and he lived in the US for a while.
Yeah. Okay.
And he was just a cool guy. And we were talking. He's like, you're riding these bikes from where to where?
Yeah.
Like what? Yeah. What? And the rain doesn't stop. We order another Americano. The rain doesn't stop. We order a third Americano. Now I'm wired. I'm like, I get the caffeine shakes. The rain lets up, and we find it's starting to get dark. And we find the closest hotel. It's like 8 kilometers away, and the road, because we're still in the hilly section of the road, there's like little flooded areas. So I'm like really nervous because like I don't know how well the drainage in this area is going to be. And like, tropical rains, anyone who's lived in Southeast Asia, when rain comes here, it's like harder than any rain I'd ever seen. I lived through hurricanes in the US, and an average rainstorm here makes a hurricane look like childish, just with volume of water. And actually at one point when we had pulled over, there was like a river running down the hill that we were going up. So like actual flowing water, so it stops and everything looks okay. There's a couple flooded parts on the way back, but nothing too crazy. We get the 8 kilometers, check into the hotel, soaking wet. And I remember I was wearing these riding jeans I had made with suspenders, and the suspenders broke, and I had to like get some paracord and like rig them up to the pants type of thing. And it's like I'm soaking wet. I don't know that anything's gonna dry, so I just I turn the aircon on to dehumidify, and like we leave it in the room, and head out for dinner. And I'm literally wearing like the shorts I plan to sleep in and like a t-shirt. I'm just like exhausted and beat down and wet still, and like feel waterlogged, and like we have this like great dinner. Like I got like egg fried rice, and Chris got pad krapow, and we joke. We had a few Leos, and that was just, it was like the absolute perfect like fuel / like camaraderie that we needed to like lift our spirits. Sure. So the next day, I think we had like 350 the next day, and and we just, all right, 350 kilometers, let's do it. And we got up again super early on the road, and I want to say we made it home by like 2:30 in the afternoon.
And just when you've got a mission and it's the end, you're able to just knock out so much more distance. Did you take the exact same route home, or did you just chuck like maps on and go a slightly different way? Or?
So for 90% of the route home, there's only one option, and that's Sukhumvit.
Yeah, okay.
So north of Pattaya or north of Rayong, there's a couple shortcuts you can take, and we did take those. Those shortcuts bring you sort of off Sukhumvit and sort of circumvent this whole little area along the coast where Sukhumvit kind of juts out. So we skirted up around that, and that probably cut out, like 2.5 hours, 3 hours for us. And then the slowest part again was we came up through Bering on the back of the city, and like just getting down Bering Road or Bang Na Road. Sorry, we came up through Bang Na. So getting through Bang Na Road was a challenge because of just like all the traffic and like all the little, like, the little bumps in the road where it goes over a clong. There's like 1,000 of those on Bang Na Road. So it's like you're constantly going up, and for whatever reason, there's always a failure point in the road, like right at the top of that. So it's like, you got to watch out. But yeah, it was once we got back to Bangna, and then we're on Sukhumvit, and then it's like Chris at the time, I want to say he lived in Asok. So it's like, I think we stopped. I had to U-turn at Unnut and come back to Bangjak. So we stopped, hugged it out for a bit, talked for a few minutes, and then off we went. Yeah.
That's it. That's so awesome. And it's, I mean, people listening to this, if you can kind of just get a sense of anything from listening to the story, it's just how amazing any trip can be. And it's definitely what you make it. As you pointed out and alluded to a couple of times, there's people looking at you like, why are you doing this on those? But you don't really need anyone else to understand your reason. If you want to do something and you can justify it in your head, jump on your bike and go for a ride, especially on these small bikes. It's really, really freeing. And once you've finished a trip, you feel 3 to 4 times as tough as you would doing that on a big bike that would just lap up the miles.
Yeah.
With no issue.
For sure.
You're a part of the trip.
Yeah. It is as straightforward as that route is, and is, as kind of like simple to navigate as it is. I think like the fun of doing it on the small bike versus like, I could have jumped on a 500cc and, like you said, just lapped up the kilometers all day. And there would have been no challenge in the hills. There would have been, none of that. But at the same time, I would have missed, like, that slower pace allows me to, like, take a moment and look at these fishing villages as I go by and appreciate it. And, I've had other trips that we've done as well. And it's like the small bike makes it so much more than it would have been otherwise. It's perfect. Yeah. It's true. Yeah. And one of the trips I've done quite frequently, and I'm sure you probably did this when you lived here, Kundan Nakanayok, the dam up in Nakanayok. You probably rode that a few times. And I've ridden that on a big bike, and I've ridden that on a small bike. It's a straightforward route. It's a very touristy area. It's a great dam to see. Like, as far visually, it's really stunning. And I think it's like the longest flat poured concrete dam in the world.
It's an impressive sight. And I didn't know it was there the first time I went. I was just on like a generic trip with a Thai friend's family, and him and his family just kind of dragged us to this place, and eventually you kind of like in the back of a van, kind of woozy and dizzy. It's the worst way to travel long distance. And you get out and it's just this wonderful, it's an incredible place. One thing this kind of alludes to is the whole reason of why small bikes. And that's actually the next episode we're going to be talking about. Why small bikes? It's a big question, the proverbial unanswerable question, why. We will attempt to do so. I don't know how successful we will be.
We got to keep in mind the mindset, always be selling. Always be selling the advantages of small bikes over big bikes. Absolutely.
The thing is, more people that buy them, the more reason that brands see to continue developing. Yeah. And, it's getting to a state now where a lot of countries need certain regulations and requirements to be met for bikes to go there. So, we're lucky that we even get them in the Western world. Thailand could easily just sell motorbikes within their own country and never service an international market and be fine. So, there's lots of reasons why, but like I say, we'll cover them next time. If you've enjoyed listening to this, be sure to check out one of our other episodes we did recently, which was about Herb Yule and the story of the Honda Trail bike and how that began. But I guess this is kind of a good place to leave it for this episode. You got anything else to add, Dana?
Well, let's go ride.
Let's go ride. We'll see you next time.